Welcome everybody to another week of industry topics and design discussions here on the Game Wisdom channel. I am of course Josh Placer, and we got another great cast for you. Joining me again is my current co-host, game developer Sharky.
Hello, everybody.
Hey Shark, how are you doing?
Bit tired, but good overall.
I know the feeling. We were just talking about this beforehand. I'm basically working 7 days a week now between doing the videos, the writings, the callings, and I have 3 days left to finish reviewing the proof for my next book. So that's always exciting. And I gotta fit in the time to try and mess around with this Elgato capture card so I can finally get some Mario Maker streams going too. The work
That'll
never
be
ends,
fantastic.
does it?
No.
Mm-mm-mm. But it has been a very interesting week as always, and hopefully we'll get Rob back soon. Drag. I think he may be getting out of like the work issues or stuff he's having, but we still don't know for sure. Maybe during the fall. Everyone misses Rob, Shark.
Yeah, I miss Rob too.
Me
One day
too.
we got to get me and Rob together.
I need to get Ramin on too, and then we'll just go for like 8 hours easily.
All four of us.
Yeah. Although with Ramin, he'll be relaxing in his hammock, or each time we have him on, he's in a more relaxing position. So next time he'll be like sailing down like a nice little stream, like on a boat. But yeah, we'll see. I'll keep messaging him to see how he's doing there. But back to what's been going on. We broke 4,700 subscribers, so thank you everybody for tuning in. I hope you're enjoying the content. We are, yeah, exactly, like Tom Sawyer.
Yeah.
But thank you for enjoying the content. As I've been saying, my goal is to hit 5,000 by the end of the year, which I think we're on track to. All I need, Shark, is some scandalous video of mine to go viral. You have any ideas?
Well, I mean, the second topic, if we address it the wrong way rather,
Mm-hmm.
that'll be pretty scandalous.
We gotta come with some more controversies for the channel. That'll get everyone to watch, right?
And what Oscar said too.
Yeah. But I don't think hentai is scandalous. I think everyone has already talked about it at length.
Not on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There we go. Somebody contact YouTube and ask them if we can have a hentai discussion. I'm sure they'll be perfectly fine with it.
Especially if you include imagery.
Oh, yes. The stream right now, I can just sense the algorithm flagging the stream right now as we're talking about it. In fact, it's probably already been demonetized just by just mentioning the word. And we haven't gotten to the weird game segment yet.
You want to restart the stream?
Well, we'll see what happens. If the stream cuts out, folks, you'll know why. But I did finally get a chance to talk with Jeff Vogue of Spireweb Software. Probably one of my funniest casts. That one should be going up, I think, either this week or next week on the channel. We'll see. I'm going to be having that conversation with Tomo. I hope I didn't butcher his name too much. Your friend who's working on Epic Tavern.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that one.
Mm-hmm.
Is that one going to be live or pre-recorded?
I think we're going to be doing that live on Tuesday, and I'll make a more formal announcement probably tomorrow on it.
Nice.
I think we're aiming for 3 p.m. my time for it. The wonders of various time zone conversions.
Yeah.
But other than that, like I said, work's been going steadily on the book. I have 3 days left to review and make sure all the proofs are right, and then the book's go into production. And then it will be out in October, from what I last heard. Oh, and if you didn't hear the news, I'm finally going to be hopefully getting my first royalty check for the first book. So I can now officially say I'm an author, right?
Right.
Woohoo. I'm still waiting to get word about book number 3, and I'm hoping as book number 2 wraps up, we'll be able to say yay or nay to that. Because I really want to do one about horror design. Or maybe roguelikes. I'm not sure which will be the next book in the series.
You could combine and make it a horror roguelike.
There we go. Let's see. Anything else happening before we get to some news and stuff? Other than the book, all the work, I think that's about it. So, I guess for you, Shark, how is everything going while I take a sip of some soda?
Well, I've been working on some prototype layouts and redesigns and just a whole bunch of proxy art for the most part to do some tests with Project Triad and whatnot. And the tests are going so well that I'm halfway tempted to do the UI design myself. And save us $100 because the fact is the way it's looking like right now is we're not going to have that $100 that I needed or stuff. As a matter of fact, the way things are looking like right now, I'm about $300 in the hole and not even close to getting half of the things I need. So if I could do one thing myself, that would take a load off the money, but at the same time, the UI is so important because that's going to be no matter what set we do. Saying the game has legs and everything, and we get to do multiple sets. Every set that UI will be in, so like the slightest screw up to that is going to affect the entire game's life. So.
UI is not one area where you can skimp on, I think, as many developers have learned the hard way.
Yeah. At the very minimum, at least this will maybe get it cheaper done for us or get a better end product by having some really higher quality proxy art.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see how things play out.
It's never easy when it comes to making these decisions, as we've spoken about many times over on these streams.
Yeah. Money is always an issue.
And that's probably a really good segue into some of our topics, because our design topics this week really do have to do with money and living in the game industry. And we got some very meaty ones, I guess, to discuss. So, let me see. Which one should we start with first? Do you want to do discoverability first?
Yeah.
Okay. So, for this topic, I came across this blog post on Gamasutra, which, if I can get the demo working, we can pull it up. That's not the right window. Come on. 1 second. It's pulling up everything. Let's see, did that work? There we go. So, this blogger on Gamasutra did a discussion about discoverability and kind of what's hot or not in his views of what's going on in the independent space. And it kind of gave me kind of the inspiration to talk a little bit more about discoverability in general. And this is a topic I know we've spent some time on previous casts about, and it's always one I think a lot of people discount when it comes to their video games. What do you think about that one, Shark?
Well, a lot of people do dismiss it, and it is probably the most important thing about your game that if you're going to be successful. And those who do, push it to the wayside often are not successful.
Yeah. And I'm just actually reading more about this piece right now, and if we do get to that third topic, I have a whole lot to say about what genres are not considered hip or not, but I'll hold that for a little bit later. But yeah, as you said there, it's something that a lot of people don't really consider when it comes to developing a game. Again, if you're busy designing a game for 2 to 3 years of your life, are you really thinking about social media and PR while you're trying to build this game in the first place? But in the same breath, though, it's something that I think a lot of people don't really understand how important it really is. And I've brought up this example before. I'm sure, Char, you may have ran into this as well. Like, if you've looked at like indie forums or Facebook groups of people who just discount anything discoverability, marketing, PR wise for their game. And they'll always say something along the lines of, if your game is good, it will sell itself. And I know that is probably a very triggering phrase for you as well.
Well, the thing is what they're saying isn't 100% wrong.
Mm-hmm.
What it is it was right like 5 something years ago,
Mm-hmm.
but that was before Steam was completely flooded and all these other platforms were completely flooded. Because back then, when they weren't flooded, you could make a good game. People would try it out, and if they liked it, they would spread the word, and it would make money.
Mm-hmm.
Where now there's so much of a flood in the thing that pretty much nobody's going to try out your game, not unless you put out all the promotion, you do the social media, you do all this other stuff to get people. You instead of back then where there was, I don't know, we're going overinflate example, but kind of thing. There was 10 games on Steam and 1,000 users, right?
Mm-hmm.
So every user, you're going to have an average of 100 users right there. Where now we got, I don't know, let's say 10,000 games, and now we have 10,000 users, which means every user is going to maybe try out one game. But at the same time, there's so many games that they have that they want, that they're going to pass up your one that they're going to willing to try for getting games they already know they're going to want. Where before, I mean, there wasn't very much option. They may already have the other nine. They're going to try you out.
Mm-hmm.
So, what they said used to be true, but in today's market, it is almost a route to failure.
Mm-hmm. And I would add to that for a lot of developers, especially those first timers, they'll usually conflate, and I said this in a piece I read, they usually conflate success as marketing itself. And I think this goes back to what you were just describing there, Shark, that a great game will sell itself, or that you need a great game in order for it to be successful. But a lot of developers only stop there. And the example I always pull is Darkest Dungeon. That when Darkest Dungeon succeeded, and it succeeded incredibly well, from Kickstarter to early access to now on multiple platforms and now has a sequel coming out, there are a lot of developers who looked at that and said, Red Hook Games made a great game, and that's the only reason why they succeeded. But in actuality, they were doing marketability, PR, letting people know about the game for months before they even had a Kickstarter. And what I think a lot of developers fail to understand is that the mass success or the mass critical praise that you get from your game, that is the result of you having good discoverability and good marketability, not part of the equation. That's not part of the process. That's the end result of it.
Yeah, and I would argue that you don't even have to have a great game to sell it,
Mm-hmm.
be successful. I mean, there's plenty of examples out there of really crap games that succeed very well because they have very high discoverability.
Yeah. What we like to call for the stream friendly or YouTube friendly game market.
Yeah, or the media friendly market,
Mm-hmm.
or the I mean, being on a console itself is almost that kind of thing because there's so much limited games on consoles generally.
I don't know if that's as true now as it would have been like 5 or 6 years ago. We have
Yeah,
seen a lot more, especially Nintendo. I think, as you remember, there was that whole big push last year of the indie bubble going to Switch for a short time.
yeah. I mean, it's not as good as it was, but I mean, it's probably closer to the way the consoles are now is probably closer to the way Steam was 4 or 5 years ago, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, before that, Steam was even more likely to make people a success because of good games. But you know, the consoles are inflating the same way Steam is inflating. Just Steam is like to pretty much critical mass right now.
Yeah. And with a lot of these factors when it comes to discoverability, again, like what we're describing hits a lot of different disciplines. It's not just you being able to sit on Twitter all day, following people and doing ats and threads and stuff like that. It's about being able to reach out to developers, reach out to members of the press, reach out to YouTubers, streamers, you name it. And it's one of those things that it sounds, I think, a lot easier than it is. There are
Oh
people who
yeah.
think that, oh, just type, hashtag indie game on every one of your Twitter posts and you'll do fine. It doesn't work like that.
I mean, if it is, then I'm waiting for the fine on Chromasia.
Yeah. And I'm waiting for that for Game Wisdom, too.
Yeah, and the thing is, like I contacted for Chromasia, I contacted 100 plus YouTubers, and mind you that I didn't just write like one generic email and then
Mm-hmm.
copy and paste it to everybody, or just put everybody in the same email kind of thing. I wrote independent emails to
Yep.
each one of them, customized to them, kind of thing. And I wrote 100 plus actual emails, and I did not get one, not even one reply back. So getting YouTuber attention is not that easy, unless you got money to pay for a sponsored spot, in which case you'd probably get their attention really fast.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Or you have, like, a big name. Thank you, Alberto. Let me put that at the end of all my Twitter posts from now on. That should help. But yeah, and that's the thing. Like, unless you have like a publisher or you're already a big name, and again, this is where the whole kind of like uh, the cycle or the circular nature of discoverability kind of comes into play, and why it's so hard to talk about this. Because again, like going back to Darkest Dungeon for example, we can't examine the marketability of that game anymore because it's blown up. By the time you're able to really find or look at a game and analyze it, it's either dead or it's so big that it's impossible to kind of trace that. And this is what makes it so difficult for people to understand what makes a game successful and what doesn't. Like with your what you were just saying there, Shar, regarding contacting YouTubers and streamers, that there are people out there who that's their entire marketing plan. That they and oh, I'm sure we've all heard of this. Like when people say my game didn't succeed because PewDiePie didn't cover it. But you have to ask, why didn't PewDiePie cover the game in the first place? Is that old, the South Park meme of, we do this, question mark, profit.
Yeah, there's many different factors. I mean, YouTubers will pick up games that are they'll pick up some quite bad games,
Mm-hmm.
like your what's that one where you're in a pot and you have a hammer or whatever. They
The
love
getting
that game.
over it.
Yeah, they love games like that. Games that are, I would say, are generally bad games, but the reason why I think a lot of YouTubers pick those games up is because a lot of viewers like watching YouTubers fail,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. And those kind of games are very easy to fail at, no matter
Yeah.
how hard you do, how good you are. You know,
or they like to play it up for the camera as well.
yeah, yeah. Anything they can play up for the camera.
I was speaking like this is like the perfect like coincidence here. A video popped up on my feed last night of Markiplier playing a Getting Over It fan game where you're on a pogo stick trying to climb a mountain instead of using the shovel and the pot. And
Hmm.
he was apparently playing with friends or other YouTubers, and they were both overreacting at the same exact time to their each individual failings. It was like very odd watching that.
Yeah, I mean that's what a lot of YouTubers do. They overact this stuff. I mean, they kind of have to because of YouTube, the way YouTube is all set up and
Right.
everything. To a point. I mean, they don't have to actually have to, but if they want to succeed and make it big, the likelihood that they do that is makes the likelihood of them succeeding a lot higher, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
So what you're saying is that every stream of mine, I should yell and throw something at least 3 times during the stream.
Probably.
Damn. I don't have enough stuff around here that I want to throw and break.
Well, you'll have to just go buy some stuff,
There we
and
go. I'll go. I'll go to the Home Depot and just buy like some cheap chairs or like a little display. I'll just like have it like right here, like off camera. So whenever I get angry, I just grab it and throw.
something else I've seen is like they like exercise, like forcing them to exercise, like do push-ups or
Oh, jeez.
pull-ups or
Don't tell
squats.
Mojo that. No one let Mojo know about that because he'll start playing that in these super chat donations.
$1 to do a push-up. Yeah, I mean they did
Go
that.
do a
They
jog outside.
every donation they'll do a push-up kind of thing, and
Mm.
then they'll do push-ups at the end of the night kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. That could be marketing though for them. I think I need to get in
Yeah,
touch with them.
that is what it is. That is a marketing tactic. That is a marketing tactic for them.
Yeah. The
So
problem is
we've
that
gone from game discoverability to YouTube discoverability.
yeah. The problem is that it's actually hard to find the cream soda. So if I drink too many, I may get into a shortage of it.
Uh-uh.
Uh, I'll single-handedly cause a shortage of Dr. Brown's soda. Soda disappears, correlating to YouTuber doing promotions on stream. Wait, better yet, Ken, what if Shark does a face cam of a giant wearing a giant shark mask, and then over that a human mask? There we go. We'll do some Inception level stuff right there. And getting back to Ken's point about genuine reactions don't sell, I still remember when I did the Dead Cells play and I beat that fight for the first time. I went like this. I did my fist pump of being celebratory fist pump, and like somebody left a comment saying that looks staged. Like it didn't look like you were really into that win. Because I guess
Yeah,
I jump up and flip my chair like into the ceiling.
yeah. It looks staged because it didn't look staged.
Mm-hmm. Or, and speaking about getting over, someone left a comment saying, "There's no chat window. Like, I bet you don't have anyone watching you right now. You're just talking to yourself." I have all these voices in my head right now.
Just all the voices.
Yes, but
But back to game discovery, like there's a lot more than just social media and stuff
yeah.
like that to it. I mean, the name of your game is part of discovery because if you cannot look
Mm-hmm.
up, if it's not something you can decently spell
Oh
and
yes.
and different enough from other things that you can find it in Google or whatever search engine they use, then they're not going to find you that way. I mean, like if you name your game Google the game, I mean, anybody searches Google, they're going to get 5,000 results, and
Mm-hmm.
none of them are your game.
Yeah. And that's like the grand like catch-22. Your name has to be unique enough to stand out, but not too unique that nobody can find it.
Or spell it.
Oh yes, bonus points for when developers put like numbers and like punctuation symbols in their names.
Yeah, I mean, we had that same issue with Chromasia. Like, I mean, Chromasia is a unique enough name, but it's not like you can easily spell it. It's not hard to spell, but it's not easy to spell
Yeah.
either. So to increase our findability, we added the subname of Rock Paper Tactics.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody even halfway spells any of that, they can find it.
Yeah. But here's an interesting point about that. When I'm on like a site like Keymailer, I was just about to post something like that too, Elgar. I just couldn't do that and form the next thought at the same time. But like when I'm on like a press site, like I'm on Evolve and Keymailer, when I'm typing in the name of a game, I have to be exact, even down to like any weird things that are in that title. So I'm trying to think of a good example. Like if a game ends with an S, like let's say it's Battle Brothers, for instance. If I type Battle Brother in on Keymailer, it doesn't bring it up, or it didn't used to bring it up. So I need to make that title exact, or it's not going to find it. And again, like when you start putting like very weird symbols, or if your name is just very hard to pronounce or whatever, that's going to cut down on people finding you. And there's one topic I want to talk about word of mouth next, but I'll throw it over to you, Shark, if you have anything to add to that.
Well, I mean, you talked about earlier about people not thinking about social media presence and all this other stuff during development, and I can perfectly understand that. But here's the thing: is you pretty much have to. I mean,
Mm.
I just started a new Twitter account specifically to do that for Project Triad. Now that I'm going to have something more to show off very soon, and I need to get more exposure out there. And it's not something I like to do. It's not something I want to do, but it's something I pretty much have to do if I want the game to succeed in any kind of form.
Yeah. And what you just said there, what you have to do, that I think has always been again one of those really big dividing points between like developers who do manage to succeed and those who tend to struggle. Because again, there are plenty of developers out there who view social media, Twitter as that's like going to the dentist and getting teeth pulled. They would rather do that than do that kind of stuff. And
Yeah, me too.
yeah, and I always go back to what my friend Z said from Serenity Forge on that cast we had, where he said that to him, there's as much art in the business as there is business in the art. And it's a phrase I like to keep saying because it is very true about this. That you can't just wear, the business hat and not be an artist, just as you can't wear the artist hat all the time and not think about the business.
I
And
don't know. I think you could wear the business hat without being an artist.
I think if you have somebody who can kind of do the art for you, then yeah. But as we've said before, like when it comes to discoverability, I think this is another big point. You need something to make your game stand out. And you said this a few minutes ago, again, with a lot of like the very weird games that people have been playing, that there's always that. I'm not sure how we would describe it, just like as simply as a weird factor or a curiosity factor to these games. And
Or a beauty factor.
yeah, but there's always something that people can kind of attach to.
Or if
And
you have one weird mechanic that really stands out, or one unique, innovative mechanic.
something like Cook Serve Delicious, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
or Stardew Valley. Again, Stardew Valley made waves because it was pretty much the only Harvest Moon like. I guess that we'll have our own subgenre there out at that time. Nobody else was making them, so he figured, why not? I'll make it because I want to play that game. And now we have all these other games trying to copy that. But there you go, exactly. But it's a really good distinction between when we were on the Grabback stream last night and we were playing Golem Gates versus what was it? Dungeon of the Endless. I should have had that game memorized by now. Like when you look at Golem Gates, it looks competently put together. You know, it uses the Unreal Engine. It's got that, you know, AAA sheen to it. But there's nothing memorable there. Like if I put that screenshot up and compare to other games, how many people would know what that game is? And then conversely, we look at something like Dungeon of the Endless or even Anodyne 2. Even if you have no idea what that gameplay is, you can look at those games and you know that there's something different or unique about them.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, and when you're selling your game, oh, I hit the mic there. When you're selling your game, even before you're actually literally selling it, you're selling it marketing wise, not selling it, you know, with money wise. But when you're selling your game, I mean, people get to see your screenshots and trailers and videos. You know, that's it. That's where you sell them at. And you know, your art style, you know, comes across in there. You know, video editing comes across in there, and potentially if you have a, you know, YouTuber that overreacts, that comes in there, and you also get some, you know, maybe some or one special mechanic comes through there depending on how you do everything. But like that's what you're doing you're selling with, you know. And no matter how good your game is, unless you're getting stuff out there to draw people in, because remember, you have to draw people in now, where before people would come to you because you know there were so few games, so many people. Now there's so many games, so few people. You have to manually pull them in with these screenshots and videos.
And as a quick tangent there, that's one of the reasons why a lot of people or a lot of developers are really keeping an eye on the Epic Games Store right now. Because there aren't a ton of games on there. But, you know, getting people to get the Epic Games Store, that's its own unique can of worms.
Yep. And also, you know, every game that goes on there gets tons of press. Everybody hears about it. You know, now that I think about it, I mean, what would it be like? What would happen if you made a game and you signed for an exclusive on
Epic?
Epic, yeah. And then somehow you found a loophole in the contract, wrote the contract, and went exclusive to Steam after that. You know, you had all the marketing, all the buzz from that, and then you get to be like the game that broke free of Epic and come to Steam and leaving that, and like all the publicity and press from that, like it would be like a firestorm, and you would almost certainly be rich as hell if it was any kind of halfway, you know, like, you know, review score of like 30% or better, you know. You would be rich as hell, I think, if you did that kind of thing.
But then you'll have the Epic lawyers coming after you.
Not if you found a legitimate loophole. To get out of the contract legitly.
Oh, yeah. But, getting back to the other point I wanted to bring up, and that is the idea of word of mouth. Word of mouth is that, you know, magical phrase that a lot of people have used, you know, to try and, you know, get their games or get anything to succeed. I did as well with Game Wisdom for years. And I don't know, like, I think just from like my own experience, I don't think word of mouth as the only marketing or the only point of discoverability is going to help you all that much. I guess, what do you think about that?
This is like a dice roll.
Yeah.
Basically, this is word of mouth will only work, number one, as good as mouse you have to begin with. So if you only have 3 mouse, it only is going to do 3 mouse worth, and those mouse will, each one will express a different level of fanaticism. You know what I mean? The more YouTuber, over the top they are, kind of thing, the better the word of mouth is, right? And the more they spread it, the more word of mouth is going to work. So I mean, like, even if you just have 3, if you have them enthusiastic enough and wanting to spread it enough, it could work freaking miracles. The thing is with so many games that exist right now, I mean, you would have to have like something phenomenal that is absolutely beautiful, and you would have to have almost a perfect game. I don't even mean just a perfect review score. I mean, like a literal perfect game to get that much kind of thing, to get word of mouth to work on 3 people.
Yeah.
I mean, or it's just got to be like meme worthy enough, like
Goat Simulator, Getting Over It, stuff like that.
Flappy Bird.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to, like, it's got to be meme worthy enough to drive that. But at the same time, to get that, the key part of Flappy Bird was that it was free. So it didn't take, since it was meme worthy. I mean, nobody's going to pay $15 to get a meme worthy game, probably. I mean, there might be a few people. There's definitely a few people.
Yeah.
But your average person is not, no matter how much word of mouth they're going to get, they're not going to touch it if it's $15. They're, free. On the other hand, yeah, they'll might just gravitate towards it. But to sell a game, you would have to have almost a perfect storm of a game to just perfectly, push that across, and that is very unlikely to happen. Now if you have, instead of 3 mouse, if you have 100 mouse, that's way more likely, but still next to impossible kind of thing. You would need probably 10,000 mouse to have any real chance of that. But if you have 10,000 mouse, then you're already an established developer, and you're already going to get promotion from media and stuff like that, which, again, media and such, YouTube, review sites, all that stuff is word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you're getting to the point where it's not regular word of mouth. It's word of mouth because you're already established. You already have all these people underneath you and whatnot. And I mean, yeah, if you're already established, I mean, you do you. But if you're not already established, then word of mouth is very unadvisable.
Yeah. And like you just said there, like, when it works, it's kind of already too late because you've already succeeded. Like, you can't start with word of mouth.
Yeah, it's the thing is again, how are you going to get those first 3? Are they your best friends? Are they are they 3 people who happen to find you for some random reason somewhere because you met them someplace or something? Maybe you met them on Discord. I don't know. How did you get those first 3 people? I mean, and again, 3 people isn't going to work unless you have this perfect storm of a game, which is going to take so much of a budget that that you wouldn't just have 3 people unless you were like some millionaire who was just throwing around cash.
Do I have any? If any millionaires are watching this right now, they want to shoot me $1 million, I would happily take that. But yeah, and that's always been like the tough point, because like, word of mouth is kind of like that X factor. You never know who's going to talk to who's going to talk to who, and that spreads. But it's not something you can really bank on as a developer. Again, it goes back to that whole, do something, ? Profit kind of thing. And the word of mouth is that question mark. In some cases, your game, in some weird, 6 degrees of separation or 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon way, may find its way to PewDiePie because of that. But
Yeah.
again, that, like, for a developer, that's akin to you, winning a lottery or hitting a jackpot on a slot machine. You can't you can't base your entire marketing on a gamble like that.
Yeah. I mean, at best, I mean, I think you would actually have a greater chance of winning the lottery for $10 billion off of one ticket that cost you $1 than you would becoming successful off a game like that.
Mm-hmm.
With no fan base to begin with, you're more likely to win $1 billion than you are to become a $10,000 heir. With a game.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
let me tell
again,
you, your
like,
odds are very low on the lottery. I mean,
this is like one of the points. I'm not sure how true this is, but I want to get your thoughts on this. That when I see a lot of games, and again, like the games that I've show on stream and on the channel, that's just a fraction of the games that I've looked at or I receive press keys for. And for a lot of, like, the smaller games that don't do anything really well in terms of marketing, in some cases they don't seem to be that good of a title to begin with. And again, this is like not an attack on a developer. Like, if this is a first-time developer, I'm not expecting you to make the next Dark Souls. But, like, and I think this again goes back to that point that, do you think marketing and and the quality of the game designer go hand in hand, or is it more or less like maybe like two separate pools of skills?
I think what you're more getting at there is the people who are new are to coin a term, newbies, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't know exactly what they were doing. I mean, our first game, Chromasia, we were newbies essentially in a lot of ways. I mean, we had made several games, but like none of them published or anything. Nothing like a commercial kind of thing. And Chromasia was our first one of that,
Mm-hmm.
and we were kind of the victims of that at ourselves. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't promote properly. I didn't do a lot of things properly, and I knew that was going to be a key point. A lot of people don't know that's going to be a key point, and I've talked to many people who didn't know that that was a key point. I knew it was a key point, and I prepared as much as I could, but even at that, I was
Mm-hmm.
so sorely underprepared, and like I had studied for I don't know, like months and months and months on this kind of thing, and did all kinds of research. Talked to my developer friends that offered me advice and this, that, and the other, and you know everything I did had basically nearly zero impact. Like
Mm-hmm.
all the work I did, everything I put in, every contact I put out there,
Mm-hmm.
everything I did, everything I set up. I think 99.999% of it fell through. So like,
It's the and that is like very. I know the same way. Like, I'm contacting libraries for probably now until December, and I know that the vast majority of them are going to probably say no, or they're going to put me off. And it's very tough for a lot of times when you're trying to put that much work into something and know that the majority of it is not going to work. Or, again, or conversely, some of that could work. Like, it's kind of like, I'm trying to think of a good example of this. Like, well, I'll go back to my libraries. Like, I could contact 30 libraries, 29 of them could say no to me. But if one says yes, then that makes it all worth it. That is future. That's more work for me. But the problem is, I don't know which ones are going to say yes. If I did, it would make this work a whole lot easier.
yeah,
And it's the same thing with discoverability and with a lot of the stuff we talk about with game development. That you can email hundreds of streamers, you can send your game to every major game site, and they can, like 90% of them can say no. But you never know, again, who's going to be that one yes? And again, it goes back to the whole idea of word of mouth like that. It is a gamble. And unfortunately, what makes it so hard to understand and study is that by the time you are actually able to look at a game, it's already won. Like, if you know about that game, then its discoverability has worked. Again, everyone knows what Goat Simulator is at this point. They know Undertale, Five Nights at Freddy's. So it is impossible to kind of go back to what is considered patient zero for them. What was that first thing that got those games to work?
The thing is even there's it's not just purely gambling though when you're contacting them. I mean, when you're, for example, the mistake we made with Chromasia is our art was not good enough. So when I talked to, sent emails and whatnot to all of these content creators, the art did not grab them. The screenshots did not grab them.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing grabbed them. You know what I mean? And when I'm talking about grabbing, I'm going back to what we were talking about: screenshots, trailers, and videos.
Yep.
And the fact is if I had some better screenshots or trailers, I could have possibly got the YouTubers to make videos.
Mm-hmm. And I want to chime in there for a second and say that a lot of people will also send like very wordy emails. They'll write like 5 to 10 paragraphs describing their games. Most people aren't going to read that. They may read one paragraph, maybe two, but if you're emailing somebody who's busy and you've never spoken to them before, this is a cold email, they are not going to look at like an entire page worth of descriptions. If you put your heart and soul into it, they're just going to read like the first paragraph, or they may just skip it if there's no pictures or screenshots or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I kept mine to two paragraphs, but I didn't include any screenshots. Well, I did. They were down at the bottom. They were attachments. But like they weren't good, you know what I mean? They weren't grabbing. They weren't, we didn't have the best art. I mean, a lot of people really like the art, but the issue is I mixed matched two styles, and it really put a lot of people off and made it look bad. But it goes, and see, a lot of people will say that graphics don't matter for the game, and I'm one of those people. Graphics does not matter for me as long as it's not pitifully ugly to buy and play a game, to enjoy a game. But it does matter in the point of discoverability, and if you can't be discovered, then
it doesn't matter what the game
is.
It's
going to fail. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it could be the best game in the world with the ugliest graphics in the world. Nobody's going to discover it. Nobody's going to play it. Nobody's going to spread word of mouth because nobody found it, because there is no discoverability.
Yep. And I mean, when we do our weird game segment next, and we do it on previous shows, everyone has seen those kinds of games where you load up a screenshot and it looks like this game would belong like one of those old, like those like very horrible websites that are just like, we're going to use fluorescent pink and yellow and blinking lights all over the place. And it's like just clicking on the site, you can feel your computer getting 20 different viruses just by looking at it. And again, like, it's always been one of those very hard points. Chris, when I spoke to Chris Parr from Arkham Games about this, like, this is another one of like those big issues. Like, he has made, and same goes for Soldak Entertainment with their games. Combined, those two developers have made some of the most mechanic-heavy titles out there. I mean, stuff like, what was it? Not Din's Curse, the one that came after. I forget its name, but like his whole series of ARPGs, they make Path of Exile, Grim Dawn, and Diablo look like kindergarten stuff. That's how deep they are, but they don't have that good discoverability. If you put Din's Curse next to Path of Exile, or hell, next to Diablo, what game is going to catch your eye more? The game that has not only an art budget, but also has a style to it. when we talked about Anodyne 2 last night, again, that game doesn't have, Unreal Engine super quality graphics, but it still stands out. It still looks like something that somebody put time and care into. But there's that next question. How do you show that to people through screenshots? Especially if your game is not really, graphically intensive to begin with.
Well, it doesn't have to be graphically intensive.
Mm-hmm.
It has to have a style. It has to be something that grabs people. I mean, like
Yep.
Clay is a good example of
Oh,
that.
yes.
Like their art for like Don't Starve. I would say that's not good art.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's definitely not graphically intense art for sure,
Mm-hmm.
but I would classify it as not good for art. But at the same time, it's so stylized. There's so much character to it. You
Yep.
know what I mean? It's so original. It stands out. And I mean, that's something you would have to talk about your artist with your artist, and you would have to get arrangements and whatnot, and just be like, hey, make something original that stands out style wise.
Yep.
It's not. I mean, it may be easy for the artist. It's probably not, but like you would have to talk to an artist or be an artist that was really able to do that kind of thing, has their own style or can make their own style that really stands apart. I mean, like you have games like, and also I noticed games like that have a lot of style to them, not graphically intense, but stylized, very
Yep.
stylized. Those games graphically hold up over the years. Like you can go back and look at many of those games, and you're like, this game still looks good, kind of thing.
Yep. And
Um,
that has always been one of Nintendo's strongest points with their games. Again, oh, my voice is dying there. Like, each generation of a 3D Mario game, it will never be, as graphically intensive as something like Grand Theft Auto or Halo or any other major franchise. But it has those unique styles to it that you put a screenshot of a Mario game up, everybody knows what that game is. They'll know about
yeah.
it, they've never even played a Mario game. But if you put a screenshot of a Call of Duty game up and ask them, which Call of Duty is that? How many people are going to know that one?
Not very many. Only people who play Call of Duty, pretty much.
Yeah.
And you can put up an image of like Toon Leak. Everybody will know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
I hate Toon Leak. That's probably going to get people upset. I just really don't like Toon Leak. Like I hate that art style, but it does absolutely stand out and have absolutely great discoverability.
The whole Funko
my
Pop
taste.
trend as well. Like, I'm not a fan of the whole Funko Pop look, but that has taken over pop culture.
Yeah, it's got a very unique style to it. It's
Mm-hmm.
very original. It very pops,
Yep.
if you were.
And again, and let me check our time here. Yeah, I think we'll switch gears in a minute, but um, one last point, I think, from me, and I'll throw it to you, Char, about the whole art and discoverability. That, again, while the art will help sell your game, if the game isn't good to begin with, it's not going to keep people around. Like, we played, that Graveyard Keeper and, oh, that's a good sign. I already forgot the name of it. The other one, the one that we played earlier this year that was kind of like a endless grind kind of game, or that.
You're talking about the game they made after that, the
Yeah.
more recent game. Yeah, I forget the name of it.
That's a really good point as well. I've completely forgot the name of that, and that was the game I was looking forward to. And they have some really great art and aesthetics with their games, but each one of them has just really let me down from a gameplay point of view. And this is again like the other side of discoverability, that once you've gotten people interested, you have to keep them around. Because if the only reason they've discovered you is that they hate your game or you're doing something bad, then it's not really going to help you in the long run. In many ways, that can easily kill a studio.
Well, the thing is so the art really sells their games. They're profiting. They're doing well, kind of thing. People have a lot of issues with their games, but I mean, people believe it or not, are rather forgiving in a lot of ways, especially when it comes to games. So they'll forgive a lot of that. You know what I mean? And a lot of people forgive, for Graveyard Keeper and went to the next one. I mean, a lot of people forgive all the bugs and flaws and everything in Skyrim and Fallout and all these other games.
Stellaris and all
Yeah.
and Paradox. Yep.
Yeah, and they'll keep on buying them. I mean, because they keep on looking really good. They sell them, they buy them. They're not exactly happy with the game, but they're not like, oh God, I hate this. It's still like, oh, I love the way the game looks. The game, has like all this stuff that was cool, but like it wasn't done right, kind of thing. Maybe they'll get it right the next time, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And they'll just keep on buying them. So, I mean, like, I wouldn't say that would necessarily backfire on you because, like, you're still keeping your discoverability high, and in the end, it doesn't matter, sales wise to the game developer how long you play the game. What it matters is how many people bought it and for what price they bought it. It does matter, playtime for other purposes, and maybe playtime affects discoverability, but I don't actually know that. I mean, that would have to get into the Steam algorithm and whatnot, and I don't have any knowledge of that. I would think that if it does have an effect on it, it has very little.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I wouldn't even say that playtime is really kind of all that important. I mean, sales wise, business side wise. I mean, like, as a game developer that wants you to play our games, I mean, playtime is very important to me, and I'm not getting as much as I want, but,
Just like we see like those Steam reviews where someone says this game's not worth it, negative, and they have like over 5,000 hours, and then you'll have
yeah,
somebody who goes, "This game reminds me of my cat." Thumbs up. Time spent playing 5 minutes or something like that.
yeah.
But
Uh, it goes back to discoverability. I mean, discoverability is really one of one of the keys, if not the most key way to succeed. This is
mm-hmm.
where we're talking about taking the risk out of making your game. I mean, you're still, no matter what game you make, you're still rolling the dice. You know, Although when you have like all the discoverability in the world, like the triple A's, I mean that dice has like, a 20 on it. It's a 20-sided dice. It has a 20 and like 19s. You know what I mean? No
Mm-hmm.
matter what they roll, they're going to get a 19 or better. They're going to succeed, kind of thing.
Yeah. Or if you're an established indie developer. Again, people like Edmund McMillan, Clay Entertainment, Kid Fox, so many of the FTL developers, developers of Dead Cells and Slay the Spire, for instance. And again,
Yeah,
like this, I think is kind of like our major point for this section. That it's again one of those cases that once you've done it right, it's going to help you going forward no matter what. Again, like Clay Entertainment, whatever they make next after Grifflands and what was it, Hot Lava, people are going to pay attention to that. As you said, Shark, the dice are basically stacked at that point. The same
yeah,
goes for Red Hook.
and the thing is if you're a indie developer that's never published a game or never published one that sold more than 1,000 copies, kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
your 20-sided dice has 21s on it.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to get your discoverability up. And by getting your discoverability up, you're going to be changing the numbers on that dice and
Yeah.
increasing them. I mean, when you got nothing but ones, just strictly word of mouth with no mouths, you're pretty much guaranteed to fail. I mean, it would take like an act of God to like take that dice and cock it in such a way that it like shatters the dice and turns 20 of those ones into somehow a 20 magically, kind of thing.
Like when
Like,
I
like
yeah, like when
it
I
would take an
roll the
act of God.
dice, they blow up. The second they hit the table, they just spontaneously combust there.
and then they reconform into a 20. Just
Mm-hmm.
this 20, like the parts of the D20, end up being a 20.
Yeah. I mean, I could go on a whole YouTube rant right now about discoverability and the things I've had to do and things I know that I'm still bad at when it comes to getting people to come to the YouTube channel, subscribe, and all that other stuff. And again, it's very hard, and it's even harder when you're trying to put yourself next to the developers who've succeeded. Again, how many people saw FTL or Darkest Dungeon or Super Meat Boy and then said to themselves, I could make a game just like that and I'll become rich and famous? It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah. There's just so much to it, but the whole discoverability is changing those numbers on the dice and getting you a, a greater chance to succeed.
Yeah.
It's risk mitigation. It's still going to be risky, but it's
Anything you can do
far
to
less.
remove some of those risks, and that is a topic in of itself easily. So much of the
Mm-hmm.
time I put down my drink, I was about to take a sip of. But yeah, like risk mitigation, it's a major part of succeeding and surviving the game industry. And maybe we'll save that for next week because we're already about an hour in on this one. We still have our second topic and maybe a third one to get into. But yeah,
Yep.
somebody remember that risk mitigation for next week.
I'll write it down.
But I think with that, let's get to our weird game segment, and then we have a second topic plan. And if that one fizzles out, we have a backup plan. And if that one fizzles out, then we got nothing. Then we're just playing it by the
Then we
seat of
can
our
go back.
pants.
We can
Well,
go back to risk mitigation if that's the
there we
case.
go. We need to roll some dice. I think at that point.
Yeah.
All right, but let's see what is on deck this week. I also I was talking about this on the Discord that through email submissions, I've already got enough games for the grab bag this week. I'm sorry, for the indie spotlight this month. I have no idea what those games are, but people were just sending me keys to like very random titles. So who knows what we'll get this month? We'll have to see. All right, let's see. What do we have? Ta-da! Oh, RPG in a box. Escape
Well, at least the thing is they're not thinking outside the box; they're thinking inside of it.
Mm-hmm. Wait, so this is a virtual reality escape room with the DLC is more escape rooms. Not interesting idea, but I don't know. Tank
Yeah.
Nova? Wait, it's the Tank series. And again, like this is a good example we were talking about earlier. That it looks graphically like it's a 3D game, but there's nothing that's really grabbing my attention with these screenshots.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of action, which that grabs your attention. But I mean, besides that, it doesn't.
Yeah. There's Anodyne, which we're already playing. We're not clicking on that one. Rogueverse. Oh, I think we looked at that one last week. Let's see. I Walk Among Zombies. I'm assuming that's a visual novel game.
Yeah, it looks like it from the thumbnail.
Ooh, what is this? So it kind of looks like a little bit like Portal with like the sterile environments, but it looks like it's more focused on platforming.
Yeah, I was definitely getting the Portal vibe, but I mean, Portal vibe in today's market, I don't think that one stands much of a chance. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
unless they really get the discoverability out there.
Mm-hmm. Ancestors Legacy. Why is it AO? Am I going to get in trouble for clicking on this? Command your. Why would a real-time strategy game be rated AO?
There'll be tons and tons of blood.
But that wouldn't really fly much in the United States, though, because we're okay with the violence.
Well,
Unreal.
to a certain point, I
Yeah.
mean, like if you have like tons of dismemberment and stuff like
Mm.
that.
Somebody 1C. I know they've been around for a while. Oh, there's. I'm gonna put in a press key for that. The Vermintide 2 expansion.
What is
Oh,
that Winter Magic Factory?
let's see. Oh, 1 second.
That name is very grabbing for me, anyway.
Oh, jeez, another puzzle. Oh, it's a match 3 game.
Uh,
How many of those match 3 games are we gonna get caught with? Let's see. This is the game from what's his name? Terry Kavanaugh. I want to get him on for a podcast, but he's too nervous to do a podcast with. He didn't want to
definitely very
embarrass himself.
interesting art.
What?
Definitely very interesting art.
Mm-hmm.
Very stylized, very discoverable art.
And it's a roguelike, so you know we gotta play it.
Mm. That's I think it missed its point. It should have been a platformer, and you really had to play it then.
Yeah. Here's that game we were looking at a few weeks ago, Emberlight. And again, like the screenshots just really weren't like the gameplay just really wasn't catching me, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, and again, like when it
it's
comes to
just
these kinds of games, I've gotten to the point where I can usually tell within like the first like 15 to 30 minutes whether or not that game is going to turn out well, it's going to be a big hit, just by how it plays, how it looks.
yeah.
Whack! Oh my goodness! Crawling of the Dead VR.
I can generally tell from screenshots.
Mm-hmm. Cthulhu's Catharsis. Well, you got me on the name. Risk meets Civilization. Garnished with Hearthstone-style units in Cthulhu mythos. Well, they're hitting everything there, aren't they?
Yeah, I honestly can't blame them because I mean, in the end, I mean, we're sort of doing that same thing with Project Triad
Mm-hmm.
because we're hitting, because we went for an overall sci-fi theme, hitting like several different sci-fi genres. Steampunk was one of the ones on the list that I really hated scrapping because a lot of people would, that would have bring a lot of discoverability, but it just didn't fit.
What is this? A co-op 2D platformer retro style.
Looks like a Metroid sprites redone. Looks like they
Getting like
just
a
colored them to the
Castlevania
point.
theme to it.
I mean, yeah, Castlevania, not Metroid.
Mm.
I don't know what I'm thinking. It
Some,
looks like actual Castlevania sprites, though, recolored for a
yeah,
lot
like
of them.
the main character there, like it looks like with like the how the hand is right there. If you can see it, it looks like just as like they held like their whip back in like the NES era.
Yeah, and the blocks and the
Yeah,
stairs
that looks very. Yeah, and the stairs itself.
and the weird colors almost like say that they're recolored kind of thing, and they're just
Hmm.
trying to get away from the original colors. Like, I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
seems like more of a ripoff almost art wise.
Mm-hmm. It was kind of reminding me for a second of that Alwa's Awakening game, but it's not from the same developer. And I think they use all original art for it. Yeah, yeah, that looks like this screenshot right here. Looks like when the character, like in the first Castlevania, like he walks onto the screen and he goes into the castle kind of point.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, this looks very weird. Oh, good, No Man's Sky. I could actually play it now on this computer. You dare
It
me
might
to put in for a press key of it?
Uh, I hear it's not a horrible game anymore. I wouldn't want to give them any free press though.
Let's see. I'll think about that one. Rogue Glitch. Wait,
Oh,
didn't you were just saying like the roguelike should have a platformer? Here you go.
there we
Somebody
go.
beat you to it already.
Yep.
Let's go in early access. Sad. What? Okay. And talking about discoverability here. Hey, Neil. Okay. So it looks like this is a more of an art game than anything else. Oh, that smiley face is very sad there. The Great, perhaps. Oh. Oh, that looks original in terms of the art. I do like
Perhaps it
hand-drawn
does.
style. Oh, it's being published by Daedalic.
It's very clean art,
Mm-hmm.
very polished art, very stylized. I get that. That's one up for being likely to succeed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
like
would say for
right
the success.
there. I like how you can actually see like the model behind like the ruin there. Like I thought that was like a problem with the art there, but no, that's accurate with how it's kind of scratched out. Hmm.
Hmm.
Let's see. Did they make any other? Oh, looks like it's their first game. All right. Looks interesting.
They're
The
on a good
name,
road.
though, I think is going to hurt it a little bit.
The great, perhaps.
I think again, it's
I
like,
don't know. That name's ain't the most horrible.
mm,
And ain't the best word to say.
mm-hmm. Oh, good. And then speaking about some names, you see what's on the screen right now.
The one in the woods.
Mm-hmm. Paper
Yeah.
Plane.
People would probably love me to make that game, Paper Plane, because everybody said they love the Chromasia paper plane transformation. They could probably make a game just about the paper plane.
Saturday. What? What the heck?
Faraday, the piercing screens. What?
That thumbnail did not represent this game at all.
No. Those
Oof.
characters almost look like Lego characters, don't
Mm-hmm.
they?
A little bit.
They have the little thing on the head that you can snap a hat onto or another block.
Mm-hmm. Alright, a few more days here. Escape from Earth. Ooh. What? The total. Wait. There's a total of 16 planets in Escape from Earth. Wait, are you keep going to different Earths? Ooh, Death Mode. Nobody knows about, not even the developers. Yeah, sure. Shark, do you have any rogue modes in Chromasia or Project Tri that you don't know about?
Not as far as I know of. I mean, Monkey might have put some in there, but not any
Is there a
that I know about.
match 3 roguelike puzzle platformer in there anywhere?
I would highly doubt it.
Hmm.
Highly doubt it. I would say there would be.
Let's see. Currently is a game. What?
Are
Okay.
we dropping frames?
Oh, are we?
I don't know. The screen just all of a sudden went blurry on my side, and
Mm-mm.
I'm down to 144p.
Looks good on my end. Hmm. Alright. Looks like one more day, and or we'll move on after this page. Use your brain. That's good. Kill the hentai. It's finally
Um,
happened. Somebody made a game about killing hentai, or maybe someone make a video saying hentai is dead. Like that will ever happen.
Maybe they can make a Steam review about it, about how hentai is dead.
All right, but with that said, let's get to our second topic, and I think we'll spend maybe 20, 30 minutes on it, and then we'll begin to wrap things up, and I'm going to see if I can play around with my capture card, see what I can do with it. But the second topic that I want to discuss is what we were kind of having a discussion about last night when we were playing Fez, and talking about both it and Braid in terms of how memorable those games are today. And this is a very tough topic, I think. I know I threw Shark for a loop when I pitched this earlier. That thing about games as being memorable. It's one of those things where I'm sure everyone has their favorite games. I know I do, but how many of those games really stand the test of time? And then, is there a way to put that into words? And I think it's a lot harder than it may sound, or I think it is. Like, what do you think about that?
I think a lot of it is subjective. There's definitely some hard things in there that are not subjective, but it's hard to pinpoint a lot of those kind of thing. And I mean, some of it was the style that we were talking about before, about the artwork holding up, kind of thing. That's definitely part of it, but also another big part of it is nostalgia. Did you play that game when you were young? Did
Mm-hmm.
you have favorable memories to that game? You know, because if you did, then that's going to cause it to hold up more for you now than it did then,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. If you once enjoyed it, you're more likely to enjoy it later.
Yep. And it's always been like one of those issues like we see with like GOG, for instance. That GOG has a lot of video games on it, as we all know. But I've always been curious about who buys classic games who never played it before. Like for myself, I enjoy or I play the original XCOM because I played that game back in the day. But when I tried to play the original Might and Magic, that was like one of the quickest nopes and uninstalls I think I've had in a long time.
Yeah, it's hard to describe. I mean, like I never played Braid, and I can see some of the appeal to it, but at the same time, like I can't at the same time. I mean, it's like, yeah, many years ago, I could see myself enjoying that, but now, I it wouldn't be a bad experience. I just wouldn't necessarily enjoy
Mm-hmm.
it. There would be a lot of things I would rather play
Mm-hmm.
than that. Now, Fez, you know, I did play that. I do own it and everything, and I never enjoyed it to begin with. Of course, I didn't get it when it was brand new. I got it when it was on sale for like $1 or something like that. You know, it
Mm-hmm.
was well into its life kind of thing. I think I got it around 2015 or so. And when did Fez come out? Like 2010 or something?
Let's see. I knew someone was going to ask that too. Fez 2012.
2012. So it is already probably 3 years old at that point. And
And that's another really good point about how fast the industry moves. That 3 years is kind of like 10 to 15 years in a lot of cases for some of these games. In terms of how technology has advanced, game design philosophy, structure, you name it. The last decade, for instance, was a really big point in terms of the industry kind of finding itself. In terms of standardizing UIs, gamepad functionality, again, like for people, you may think like this controller is standard right now, but that took many years of developers iterating and competing with each other in terms of how many buttons should be on a controller, what should be the general placement, etc., etc. And
oh,
yep.
I just had an epiphany.
Hmm?
I think I actually might have found an answer to a
Oh.
certain point. Is if you go with like an established genre, something that we've already dealt with design wise, like so much stuff. You know what I mean? Like tower defenses are so worked out. You know,
Mm-hmm.
platformers are so worked out. You know, if you get that platforming right, if you get that RPG right, if you get that tower defense right, and then you put a little bit something special in there to make it stand out, kind of thing, and have that one thing really like, you know, keep it good, and you have a style that works over time. I think that would make it timeless.
Mm-hmm.
Something, you know, that, you know, we've already established the genre, we've already established all this stuff. You just have to have a, you gotta do that really good,
Mm-hmm.
do something special on top of that, and have a style that holds up.
Yeah. Well, of course, the $1 million question is, what is that? What is that style? Like, what separates? And again, like this is a question that developers have been asking for years. What separates like my 2D platformer from Super Meat Boy? Or what separates my roguelike from FTL or Spelunky or you name it?
Hmm. And you know, that's part of your discoverability, that you have to go back to our last subject.
Yeah.
You know, discoverability is so important. I mean, you could be discovered just by your artwork style,
Yeah.
but like, I mean, that could be enough, but I mean, it's probably not,
Yeah. But
depending on how it is. I mean, like the ones behind Graveyard Keeper and whatnot, they could have done that, and their art style would have probably been enough to make them carry through with doing nothing new, kind of thing. Because I mean, they do a lot of stuff that's not new and mess up a lot of it, and they still carry through, kind of thing.
mm-hmm. And like when we look at something like Nintendo, for instance, again, Nintendo is probably one of the quintessential examples of their games being memorable. We've played, again, like for myself, I have played my fair share of 2D and 3D platformers. But how do you put into words why Mario still holds up? Is it simply just the legacy factor, again, like the rose tinted glasses? Or is there something more there?
I think rose tinted glasses is definitely there, but also because I think a lot of people have played that game. Most people have played that game unless they're really young, and even a lot of them have gone back and played it,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing, or played it when they were really young. Another thing is Mario, like I mean, like the original Mario really kind of defined pixel art graphics back then. So I mean, they have the style that makes them really original, and they really nailed the you know, they you know, Mario basically defined what every platformer, well, most platformers should be after that point. So I mean, they didn't have an established genre, but they are the ones who established the genre, kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing.
Yeah.
So I mean,
And
they got I wouldn't say all the things right, but like they got a lot of things right. So much that
mm-hmm.
they established the genre.
Yeah. But then that raises another question then. How do you make a game that's memorable now if all the major genres have been covered? Like we said earlier, like again with discoverability, that everyone's seen a platformer, just as they've seen a visual novel game or a roguelike or a puzzle game or whatever. So how do you make yours to stand out? And the only idea that I can think of is, as we've seen, like kind of blending different genres together or different styles into something that, again, it's unique enough to stand out, but it's not too unique that it drives people away.
Well, that would be gameplay wise,
Mm-hmm.
but the thing is gameplay wise, when it comes to discoverability, gameplay wise isn't going to really generally drive discoverability,
Mm-hmm.
because you you really can't see much gameplay wise in a screenshot.
Yep.
You really can't see much gameplay wise in a trailer. I mean, the trailers, most trailers are probably 30 seconds long, kind of thing. Most good trailers are generally 30 seconds long. And, probably half, 15 of those seconds isn't even gameplay. And probably the other 15 seconds is probably animations from the game and not actual gameplay.
Or you have footage of people reacting to your game, and
Mm.
it looks entirely staged.
Or you have the 10 out of 10 from this review place, 5 stars out of 5 stars for this one. 3 Angry Birds out of 3 Angry Birds from Angry Birds.
4 cans of Dr. Brown, now 5 from Game Wisdom.
Yeah, five or 2 thumbs up from some random guy on the internet that nobody knows. You know,
And some
or
random
actually,
guy probably has a Twitter of like 100,000 followers now.
yeah,
Yeah. And like, here's a question. This is one that I posed to Shark. I'm going to ask it now because it will probably take some time for people to think of, and we still have maybe another 20 or so minutes left. But here's my question for everyone who's watching. 6 minutes. Can you think of an independent game released this decade that you think would be considered memorable? Something that will hold up 10 to 15 years from now as something people will go back to playing. And it's a question that's deceptively hard because everyone watching this, including I'm sure you as well, Shar, you have your list of favorite independent games. I know I do. But how many of those independent games could you say honestly that would hold up 15 years from now in the same way as Super Mario World or StarCraft or even something like what would be another really good example? Ooh, I should even
well,
go
we need
back to
to.
my book there, like Katamari Damacy or something else.
Yeah, I think we need to establish some rules. Like when you say now, I mean, how new are we talking about? And do we count early access?
I'm gonna say it has to be a game that's been released and it should have came out this decade. So 2010. Well, technically we have until the end of the year. So I'll throw like the game that you want like at the end of this year.
So a game that is not early access,
hmm That
but
came out from 2010 to where we're at right now.
mm, that's hard because the one I was going to name is in early access, about to come out.
Let's see. And one of the games that I was thinking about came out in 2008. Let's see. What about the other one that was on my list? That one actually came out in 2012. I was thinking like one game that came to my mind would be something like FTL, just because of the fact that it really did kind of set a lot of people down the roguelike or roguelite distinction.
Yeah, but did FTL come out in that time frame?
It did, 2012.
Yeah, I would say that.
I was going to
Um,
say Spelunky, but that came out in 2008. That game it feels like it came out like young, it came out a little bit younger than that.
I would say a lot of the Sky games which hold up.
Mm. So the
Um,
chat we have two saying Hollow Knight, and yeah, like it's always been I think one of those very weird things when we talk about these games being memorable. That it's not as we've said, it's not just about gameplay, it's not just about aesthetics, it's about that complete package. And very few games, like when we put it down to that kind of distinction or that kind of qualifier, I think would fit this category. Like for instance, I really enjoyed stuff like Asura or Grim Dawn, but those games feel again like however I say this, I think it's going to come off more insulting than I want it to be. It feels more like a product of the time kind of thing. If that makes any sense. The same thing
yeah,
I think as what we talk about with Fez and Braid. Fez and Braid, when they were released, they turned heads. part again was the fact that there wasn't that big of a competition out there. But like when we go back and try to play Braid today, it's hard to set that game aside compared to all the other, narrative-driven games being released, all the puzzle platforming that's been released. Like, for instance, I love the Swapper. And to me, I felt the Swapper was a more interesting kind of puzzle platformer than Braid was.
Yeah. All right, I got two games that might fit that. Just Shapes and Beats, developer friend of mine, my old mentor, and Beat Saber.
So actually, as we were talking about this, I got another question that may get me into trouble here. Do you, like, not just for you, Shark, but for everybody watching, do you think the Souls series will stand the test of time? Not the concept of a Souls-like, but those specific games. Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne, or even Sekiro.
Honestly, don't know. I've never played them. I would think that maybe the original will stand out because it defined the genre. But I mean, that would be my leading reason why.
Like something like the Soul series, like this is why I was thinking about it. They're so, mechanically polarizing that like each new game kind of in a way like makes the previous one obsolete in some sense. Same thing goes with like sports games, for instance. Nobody cares about Madden, 2005 these days. They're caring a whole lot about Madden 2020.
Yeah, but, I mean, you can buy like Madden, probably you could buy Madden 2018 for probably $1 at GameStop.
And same thing for like the Call of Duty games as well. Like, they're very, again, like this is going to come off more so than I want it to be. They're kind of disposable in that regard. And it's the same thing, like again, like when we talk about what separates like the best independent games from the other titles. That when I think about FTL, there's only really one FTL. People have tried to copy that game, but they never managed to get to it. As a Draken and a Ratsdale said earlier with Hollow Knight, we've played many 2D platformers and Metroidvania style games, but Hollow Knight is just that, like all the pieces of that game come together to be something different and unique. And it's the same thing we do with Mario and Blizzard's, Nintendo and Blizzard's games. That everybody's played a platform, everyone's played a CCG or an ARPG, but their games have always managed to stand out and still be remembered well. Again, years and sometimes decades at a time.
Yeah, I'm still a huge fan of Diablo 2. Diablo 3 can, go someplace.
Can it go to a place where Diablo is, I guess?
yeah, it could go to that place.
Diablo can play it then.
It could go to, what is it, stage 4 in Diablo 2?
Yep. Wait. 1, 2. Yep. Act 4.
Yeah, we can send Diablo 4 or Diablo 3 into Act 4 of Diablo 2.
This is the witty way of saying what we think about Diablo 3. But
now somebody needs to make a mod for Diablo 2 and put Diablo 3 in as one of the bosses or something.
And probably the mobile game may be joining that as well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe one of the developers asking if you had a phone.
Could be a minion in there.
Yeah, they would hit you. They would be swinging with "Don't you have a phone?" attack.
Oh, good. Between the hentai conversation earlier and the Blizzard bashing, the YouTube algorithm is warning, the klaxon, the raid alarm is going off right now.
Well, we're not Blizzard bashing. We're remembering, fondly remembering Blizzard's past and telling the future to not sell out to Activision. And
we need a time machine, like that game last night.
Yeah, we need a time machine. Tell them do not merge with Activision.
Now, back to the topic. Like, talking about these games that have stood out, like, positively like this. Like, again, like, there's a lot of games that I guess here's a question for you, Shark. I'm going to throw it to the chat as well. This is my way of getting out of having this conversation. I outsourced it to you guys. When you think about, like, some of your favorite games that you wouldn't consider memorable, like, why do you think that is? Like, again, like, I love Renowned Explorers International Society. That's one of my favorite games this decade. But in the same breath, I don't think people are going to remember that 10 to 15 years from now. So I guess, like, for you and for the chat, like, what do you think stops a game from being memorable, even if you love it so much?
Well, back to our previous conversation about art style. You could have the best graphics in the world, you could have the worst graphics in the world. If you have no style, the art is not going to hold up. If you do have a good style in there, the art will hold up. So if the art holds up, it has a greater chance to hold up over time, because the art holds up over time. Like, Final Fantasy VII is arguably my favorite game of all times, and the art in that does not hold up at all. And I would very much like to see Final Fantasy VII with a new coat of paint, not a remake. So, not looking forward to that. But a lot of, I don't know, like the story just grabbed me and everything, and just because of how huge of a hit it was, it's going to have nostalgia for a very huge part of the world, kind of thing. Being a hit definitely increases the chance of that kind of thing. So, but not having an art style, that holds up over time, will cause the art to not hold up over time, which will cause, it'd be harder for the game itself as a whole to hold up over time if the art doesn't hold up. Not impossible, but I would say, FTL's art doesn't hold up. Well, I'd say it wasn't really all that good to begin with, in my opinion, but some people really like it, and, everybody has their own preference, but that game still holds up, even though I would say the art doesn't. So, the art holding up is a factor, but it's not the deciding factor. But it's definitely a factor. But it's not like, if the art does not hold up, the game doesn't hold up. Because I have no doubt that FTL will hold out.
And with the point about kind of the difference between a remake and a remaster, and I think that's another really interesting point about kind of games being memorable. That for the titles that have managed to stand out or kind of, again, stand the test of time, the gameplay still has to work, I feel. And that's a very tough point to unpack there. Because, again, like, this goes back to, I think, kind of what we've seen with Mario Maker, for instance. That Mario Maker took off because of its engine allowing you to build and replay or redesign Mario levels. But Mario, from a design standpoint, or a Super Mario World, is, if I do the calculation right, what is that? Like, came out in like 1991. So that would be 10. What is that? Like 28 years old in terms of when it first came out. That is a very long time for that kind of design. But in the same breath, Super Mario World is considered to be like one of like it's considered to be I think like the pinnacle of 2D platforming. Like very few games have reached that same level of design.
It's
And
also kind of like the almost the birth of gaming. I mean, it's not the literal birth, but it's like the popularization, the main, not mainstreaming, but the the game that really truly started video games. I mean, it's definitely not the first. I mean, the Atari and tons of other systems were before Nintendo even came out, but it was the one that really popularized it.
yeah,
It's the one that defined
and
what a
then
video game could be from that point forward.
and then we saw a similar moment with Grand Theft Auto 3. I think that was 2002, maybe 2001. That one came out, and then that kind of pushed things forward another way.
Mm-hmm. I think any game that really pushes things forward. Well, I wouldn't even say that because, like, I meant Braid and Fez pushed things forward too, but they didn't push it forward in a way that
It,
kept going, kind of thing. Like nobody kept on using, Fez's style of turning maps. Nobody kept
mm-hmm,
on using, like the time stuff
mm-hmm,
in Braid. But people did keep on using the platforming stuff in Mario and the stuff from GTA
mm-hmm,
and such.
yep.
So maybe it's more of an adoption thing. People adopting things like they like it so much that they adopt it, and then that becomes a trend, becomes a genre, becomes something going forward that we just keep on doing, and then that makes that one game that started that triggered that going forward
Yep.
hold up.
And I think getting back to what you were saying earlier, with how a lot of these games kind of became the first of their respective genres, their respective designs. And this again goes back to what we were talking about in the last section with discoverability. That if you're trying to copy somebody else's game or somebody else's marketing, you are essentially competing with that game. And how do you compete with something that becomes a standard like this? In many cases, you can't. I mean, how many people tried to be the next Minecraft after Minecraft blew up? And how many of those games are we still talking about right now?
There we go, a memorable game right there, Minecraft.
Yep. And Minecraft will probably outlast us all at this point, now that Microsoft has picked it up.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, though, I think another interesting point, and this one may be, I think, its own segue, are the games that allow for modding or customization. Draken mentioned Skyrim, for instance, with it being re-released, and I can't even imagine how many mods have been released for Skyrim at this point. But there are games out there that people are still developing content for, and in many ways, it keeps them in that eye. Is it going to keep them as memorable as as Mario or as Final Fantasy? Probably not. But I know XCOM probably sells mods for XCOM 2, Skyrim, and so on. And it definitely seems like another way for these games to kind of last. Now,
I think mod support
mm-hmm,
on some of these makes the game itself stay alive for longer, but
mm-hmm,
maybe not the memorable part that we're
yeah,
discussing. It definitely adds life to the game over time because there's continuous new content, just like an early access game,
mm-hmm,
or just like a game that released that is still making new content, like KSP kind of thing.
yeah.
But I mean, I don't necessarily think that ties in directly with the memorable, or maybe even at all, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
And I'm glad you brought up Kerbal Space Program there, because I think that's another really good example of a quality, unique experience that may not be 100% memorable. Kerbal Space Program is one of those games that, for the people who enjoy it, that's probably their one game they will always play. Like we've talked about, that whole if you're alone on a deserted island, you can only bring like one game. What game would you bring? That's probably one of those games, and maybe even something along the lines of Minecraft. But it's also a game that's so, I think, specific in terms of its audience that I don't know if people are going to want, like, if somebody discovers that game 20 years from now, I don't know if they would play that game. And this goes again back to what we were saying a few minutes ago with, a great game versus the rose tinted glasses.
Yeah. I mean, the rose tinted glasses is definitely a factor, and establishing a genre is definitely a factor. I mean, like FTL basically established a genre. I mean, we're ending up finding that a lot of the memorable ones establish genres, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But not all of them, because I mean, Fez. Well, I mean, Fez didn't really establish a genre. Neither did Braid. They just led the indie charge.
Yeah.
They're not all that memorable either.
Oh, I just thought of one. Like, this is even older than that. Do you think Cave Story is memorable?
I mean, people remember the name, but can they go back and play that and enjoy it? Probably not.
And that's always that tough point. And it's the same with a lot of the classic games. Like XCOM, the original one, is a quintessential example of this. The original XCOM is considered to be one of the greatest games of all time. It's an easy entry on anyone's top 100 games. However, it is a horrible game in terms of UI design, approachability, the first time experience. And unless you played the original XCOM back in, I think it was like 1991, maybe, I think 1993 or 1994, maybe, I don't think there's anything of value for somebody new to play that game. Or at least in terms of enjoying it outside of from a design or an analytical standpoint.
Yeah, it's really a difficult topic, really.
Yeah.
Because as far as I know, there's no real answer. I mean, we can point out.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's the argument? Causation versus causality or
causality.
Causality.
Correlation, maybe.
Yeah, correlation. Correlation. What was it? Correlation doesn't mean causality or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much all we can do. Is we can't find we don't know a true answer. We can find
examples. Again, it's one of those things that you know it when you see it, but to explain it is another story.
Exactly.
And I knew somebody was going to ask Dragon's question there. Not the Super Seducer one, the one after that one. Is XCOM 2 memorable? That is a very tough question. And it's one of those things that Firaxis spent a lot of time with when they were developing or redesigning XCOM for a modern market. And this actually goes back to the point that you said a few minutes ago, Char, regarding remastering or remaking a video game. As we all know, Final Fantasy VII, I hope I get the right one right, it's being remade. Not remastered, it's being remade for today. So not only is it getting a complete graphical overhaul and sheen, but they are also changing the game systems. If you watch,
they're changing it to episodic, like Telltale games.
Ugh, I just got a pain in my head there.
Yeah, and they're changing. They're ripping out the whole entire original combat system and putting some kind of other combat system in there that we don't even know what it is.
It looks like it's a playoff of Final Fantasy 15 or Kingdom Hearts, at least from like the brief footage we saw at E3.
Yeah, and they're also going to be changing the characters and the way their iconic looks, and they're also going to be omitting parts of the story that they do not feel is
Yeah.
suitable, and then they're going to be putting all kinds of things in there that they want to put in there. And the way I feel want is more like filler, so that we can have more episodes and
Yeah.
make it longer and drag in more cash from this game. It all feels like a cash grab, to be
A
honest.
very expensive cash grab.
Mm-hmm. With
Yep.
$30 microtransactions.
And I
Yeah.
think that kind of, like, to me, that is the antithesis of a memorable game. And again, like, this gets back to Draken's point, I'll get back to in a second, that the games that hold up don't need any more work done for it, or don't need any more work to it. Like, a good example would be what they did with Metal Gear Solid and the Twin Snakes edition on GameCube. Did you ever play that one?
No,
Well, what
I did
they
not.
did was they gave Metal Gear Solid a graphical update. PS1 to GameCube. They did add in new content. They did change things around, but everything they added was in service of expanding on what was in the original game. So they gave you, like, the first person aiming that was in, like, I think MGS 2 or 3. They made things to compensate for the new graphics and the new style. But they did not remove or they did not change any of the gameplay. You still fought every boss the same way. I think they even still did the memory card trick for Psycho Mantis. Spoiler alert for anyone who's keeping track there. But in most of the case there, it's very much Metal Gear Solid, but the definitive edition of that game. And with Final Fantasy VII, the remake, it sounded very much like here's Final Fantasy VII, but
In name.
yeah, and that's also, like, as another tangent. Do you feel the same way about Resident Evil 2 versus the Resident Evil 2 remake? Because again, like, that's really, like, even though I loved Resident Evil 2 like I love Resident Evil 7, it's still very much Resident Evil 2 in name alone. Like, the gameplay is just completely ripped apart and, reconstituted for the remake.
Well, I haven't played either, so I can't really answer that question accurately. So I'll pass on that. But back to the Final Fantasy VII one, like we're talking about memorable. I mean, Final Fantasy VII is a very memorable kind of game. I mean, everybody loves that game kind of thing. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people, a vast majority, love that game. And the thing is if this remake gets made, and I honestly kind of hope it doesn't. I hope somewhere it gets canceled, kind of in the back of my head, because like I would like a real Final Fantasy VII remake or remaster or whatever, not or even a remake. If they just took everything that was good in there, and then they added more good stuff, and they didn't change the business model, the scummy one, they didn't take
Change
out
the
all this
combat
crap.
system.
They could. Well, no, they couldn't. They could tweak the combat
They
system.
can update it, but not gut it, basically.
Yeah, yeah,
Kind of like in a way like what I see with the Etrian Odyssey games. Like, the final Etrian Odyssey game introduces all the classes from previous ones, but they've been rebalanced for the updates of the combat system. It's still the same combat, it's just a better version of it.
yeah. And like Final Fantasy VII had Crisis Core, which was a prequel, which had a completely different combat system, and I like that combat system. But if we took that combat system and we put it in the original Final Fantasy VII,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't like it, because a lot of the stuff in Final Fantasy VII was meant to be turn based. You're supposed to mix and match all these materia and customize all these different characters, and you have like so much stuff that you have to think about every move, kind of thing. And the one in Crisis Core has a lot, basically a lot smaller resolution on its materia set, it's got a lot less thinking. It's got a lot more just doing kind of thing, reactionary kind of thing, and like that just doesn't fit. Even though it's the same
Mm-hmm.
series, I mean, it fits its own game. It doesn't fit a
Mm-hmm.
remake of Final Fantasy VII, and I think that's what they're getting into is, still something along that lines.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing I'm worried about, and the thing that I'm predicting is if this remake does come out, is it going to hurt the memorability of the original? Will it destroy the original memorability? Because if the second version of it sucks, people are going to think, and that's the most you say it all the time. That people only think about your most recent game,
Mm-hmm.
and that will be the most recent Final Fantasy VII, and they'll be thinking about the most recent Final Fantasy VII, and not the original. And people, if tons of people say the remake is crap, which it is probably likely to be,
Mm-hmm.
does that hurt? Will that kill the memorability of Final Fantasy VII? I mean, I'm thinking about it, and it kind of does for me in my head. Being that my favorite game, and then like after a remake comes out that completely bombs and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and then I mentioned Final Fantasy VII, and then they start talking about the remake and everything. No, 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 not one. The original one. And they're like, oh, the original. I don't know anything about it.
I think another part about that, and this next part I think is a little too big to get into at this point for the cast, but also do with the preservation of the original
Mm-hmm.
as well. Again, one of the beauties about, again, going back to GOG and a lot of these sites is being able to play these classic games and have a place for them. So that if a remake does suck, you still have that original to play. But how easy, and again, like, we don't have time for this question now, but how easy is it to play these games, the original version 15, 20 years from now? Because if you don't have that and you only have the remake, then what are you going to do?
Yeah. So here's a question to you. This
Mm-hmm.
is a live developer question to you. About my games.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I'm planning on doing a remake of Chrome Asia, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I remake it, what do you think I should do? Do you think I should make the original version re-available,
Mm.
or should I just keep the remake available, or should I make both? Even
That
after I've told everybody that the original isn't going to be coming back in its original form, kind of thing.
that's a tough one there. Like, like the perfect idea or like the dream idea would be to kind of package the original one in with a remake, kind of like what they did with, in a loose sense, with a Value Without Win 1 to a Value Without Win 2. If you bought one, you got the other, and vice versa. But again, like, it's one of those cases, especially when it comes to something being memorable. Like, if this version is legitimately all across the board better than the original, do you want people to see the quote unquote lesser version of this game? And
Yeah,
again, it's a hard question to answer because some people, like, you told me about this, and I know well aware about. There are people who preserve video games. They want to keep games Super Mario World, just as they want to keep Rocky and Bullwinkle for the Super Nintendo, or Tom and Jerry, or any LJN game. But there
yeah.
are, yeah,
Here's the question going more into that kind of thing is, will they, what about updates? Like, I mean,
mm-hmm,
the game when it releases and then it gets an update and an update and an update, because essentially our remake is essentially a huge, huge, massive update, essentially,
mm-hmm,
because it's not getting rid of anything that's already there. Well, I mean, it's getting rid of some of the art,
mm-hmm,
replacing it with better art, kind of thing. But it's not getting rid of the art itself. It's just going to be a different, newer version of it.
mm-hmm.
It's going to take things that were not good enough and putting a better version of it and then doing
Kind
that
of
because I mean,
like in a way, like what you're asking would be akin to should they still sell the original version of No Man's Sky?
hmm
I mean, on one hand, it's memorable. It's not memorable because everyone loved it and won Game of the Year from everybody.
yeah. Well, what if No Man's Sky came out?
Mm-hmm.
They took it down. They had to take it down from the store,
Mm-hmm.
and then they came back and underneath a different name put out, like Epic No Man's Sky or whatever they called it.
Mm-hmm.
It still had the No Man's Sky as part of the name, but it was, No Man's Epic Sky or something.
Yeah.
Would they? Would you still want the original to be out there? And let's just say the original wasn't just a complete train wreck.
Yeah. Again, like we can have a strong discussion both ways about it. For people who preserve video games, who are interested in the history, they want every version, warts and all. But
Mm-hmm.
for the majority of people, they want the best version of the game that's out there. And like to a Ratstail's point, then I want to go back to XCOM, and that will be our last thing for the chat because I can feel we're going to start running extra long here. Like, are you entitled to play the game you paid for? Like, this is a big issue with a lot of games that have or license IP that they get delisted from stores when the licensing contract runs out. They don't continue to expand it or renew it. DuckTales by Way Forward is going to be going away soon, and like for these games, like once you've bought it, like should you be allowed to play whatever version you want? Uh, to his point about speedrunning, I know a lot of people who speedran Cuphead, for instance, who purposely don't patch it because the patch removed an exploit that they use for speedrunning the game. On one hand, that is entirely fair, but on the other hand, you're kind of like, I think, going against the developer's attention in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It's all tricky.
yep,
But I mean, if you paid for a game, I mean, you paid for a license. That license shouldn't expire.
yep.
I'll put it that way.
And the same for a team. We're at this point, we better get to the XCOM because we're getting into like free to play and games as a service now, and that's again, we'll be here till like 10 o'clock tonight. We start talking about that,
Yeah.
but um, let me get to Draken's question about XCOM 2 because it is a very tricky case. For those of you who didn't follow development, when Firaxis got the license for XCOM and Jake Solomon first started coming with versions of it, he very much designed it as XCOM, but what was the year that the first one came out? Again, I should have this stuff like available at all times. XCOM Unknown came out in 2012. So when he first designed it, it was very much here's XCOM, but made in a 2012's engine or a 2012's graphics. And when they did that, they did not like that version of the game. They found, like, again, the original XCOM is an amazing title, but it's very dated in terms of its design. So what they did was instead of trying to kind of like fit a square peg into a round hole, they just said, you know what? We're just going to make our version of XCOM. It's still XCOM in name, it's still the same basic idea, but it's basically what if Firaxis made XCOM instead of Julian Gollop and whatever his company was at the time. Let me see. That was... Oh, it's just considered Julian Gollop, I think. Oh, developed by Mythos Games and, of course, Microprose. So, with XCOM 2, it's a very weird case because it's basically continuing Firaxis' take on this design. And I don't know too many people who want to go back to that original XCOM. Like, for me, like, the whole, like, Firaxis XCOM franchise, Enemy Unknown, Within, to 2, and War of the Chosen, yep, and that's another really good point there. It's basically like the closest I think a game has come to being like perfection for me. Not perfection, in general, but like one of my dream ideas, one of my favorite games. Same goes for Hinterland, but that's another hour if I start talking about it. And then we have what you just said, like it's almost like full circle. So now Julian Gollop is designing his take on XCOM 2, which is originally Firaxis' take on his game. And
Yeah.
it's very weird. Again, it's one of those. And going back to what you said earlier, Sharp, with why this is a difficult discussion. Game design evolves. It's something that I've talked about many times in the past. I don't think it's given enough credit. That as we move forward, design philosophy has changed in terms of what people expect out of a game and how you design a game, especially with UI. As you were saying at the start of the cast, like UI is a very big deal. It wasn't that big of a deal 30 years ago, but as we've seen the evolution of design, it has become important to think about the UI, just as you were thinking about the core gameplay loop and so on and so on. So for a lot of these games, like when you're trying to redesign something to put your own take on it, you're thinking with a different lens than you would back then. It's the same thing with the modern retro mark, and oh my goodness, we're going on so many tangents here. But many developers are emulating classic games using with this idea of modern retro. Again, Locomolito being probably one of the standout examples. Yacht Club with Shovel Knight. Oh, what was that?
Or what was that one? The couple games that came out inspired by Banjo-Kazooie.
Ukulele, A Hat in Time, that Kid Baby Star Child. And like with these games, and this is one of the things that we've seen this market, that being inspired is not the same as just trying to directly rip off those games. Because the market doesn't want to, nobody wants to play, Castlevania 1, but release today for $40. They'll play,
in a blue and green palette like we've seen in the game, the weird games section.
Yep. They want to play a Castlevania inspired game, but they expect to see conventions of modern day. A big one, saving, checkpoints, controls that are easy to play or that are at least a little bit more accommodating for your hands.
UI that works good.
Yep. Again, like with XCOM, you show that UI to someone who's never played XCOM, they will have no idea what the hell any of those buttons mean.
Mm-hmm.
But you show them XCOM 2 or Enemy Unknown, and it's a lot easier to digest than those older games. Yep, pretty much. I mean, that was its whole selling point, was going to be Symphony of the Night 2. But the non-trademark infringing Symphony of the Night. Yeah. But it all goes back to this point about memorability when it comes to design, is that some things don't hold up. Again, the reason why Mario World holds up well is that it is an amazing game through and through. Is it the perfect platformer? That's up for debate. But it's a game that you can play today, and it can still be enjoyed. Probably if you want to play, The Simpsons, Bart vs. the Space Mutants, that's probably not going to hold up all that well. It's still a platformer, but I don't know too many people who want to play that game. Unless they want to punish themselves like I did. But we have definitely ran longer, and Shark was worried we wouldn't have a lot to talk about, and we've somehow expanded to like a 15-minute conversation.
Yeah, I think it was my epiphany that really caused it to expand.
Yeah. But we're going to end things here. I guess, do you have any final thoughts? Because I'm about tapped out, I think.
I think that we can, again, find some games that are memorable, but we can't truly tap into what made them that. We can't give you any kind of formula or like do this and your game will be memorable over across time. And I don't think that's required either, but it would certainly be nice if you could do that. But it's it's we can't define it. It's it's out in the ether, as you were, and we just have to do what we can do. And I mean, everybody has their own skills. Everybody has their own skill sets, and some of us, maybe, some of us developers as a whole, will make memorable games, and we'll have to wait and see who does that. I mean, hopefully, I get to make some. We'll
And to officially answer Dragon's question, I think XCOM by Firaxis is memorable. And I think of all the XCOM style games, I think it's going to be the one that's going to stand the test of time, just thanks to Firaxis' eye towards making a game that's approachable by many people. Making a game that's approachable, that's another 3-hour conversation. I don't like spam. I do like ham.
I don't either. But spam is very memorable.
Yes, it is. There you go. You should put some spam in a Rasia remake.
Yeah.
Alright. But for anyone new watching, if you are new, be sure to check out our Discord channel. Link down below. It is open to everybody. Shark, it has been a pleasure hanging out with you for yet another Sunday afternoon / evening now.
It was good coming, as always.
Yeah. Now, if you'll excuse me, I may be doing some capture card testing when we're done here. But I'll be back later tonight for some kind of game, and we'll be back next Sunday around 3:34 for our next live show. And I'll let you guys know when our next developer stream is. But thank you everybody for tuning in. Come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where he's in the art and science of games. Have a great rest of the Sunday, and we'll see you all next time. Take care.